This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9. ARRL-NTS met nightly at 6:30 p.m. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KFI-TDS. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DART Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? The directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a TL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. You can now check in to the net electronically by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Look for tonight's Skynet check-in hot link and check in. We will acknowledge you on the... Don't worry. If you want to check in via voice, we will continue to do that also over air and Echolink. It is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and 73 rounds. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So let me check our log here. That have checked in. Let's see, the net acknowledges Tom, KE5ICX, John, K5JDW, Randy, KE5JIT, Tony, NT5CM, Bill, N5BB, K5MCD, KJ5GTF, Chaz, KF5JHA, Brenda, WB5OZL, and Kelly, K5KTX. And as I said before, I'm Billy, KF5TDS. You can check in using the hot link located on the w5fc.org website. Just look for Skynet, hot link, and check-in. Now let's start with voice check-ins, starting with short time. So at this time, I will turn the net over to my alternate net control, Tom, KE5ICX, if you will do the voice check-in round, please.
KI-5 Whiskey Whiskey Tango, Joe in Lancaster.
Kilo Golf 5 Uniform Foxtrot Romeo Jacob Dallas.
Kilo Juliet 5, Delta Zulu Charlie, Doug East Dallas.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch. This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James Carrollton.
This is Alpha India 5, Quebec Echo Bob Uptown.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas.
Kilo Juliet 5, Foxtrot Lima Tango, rig mobile in Mansfield.
Then this is Bill, November 5, Lima, India Golf.
Tom, if you will add number 24, I see AG9 has checked in on our new electronic check-in. So if you'll add him, that's all right. Welcome to everyone who has checked in, and welcome to Skynet. All right, let's start with general announcements for this evening's net. Do we have any general announcements? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or general interest to licensed hams. If you have an announcement for this evening's net, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Sam, Tony, good evening. What announcements do you have for us this evening?
Thank you, Billy. Always great to hear you. There will be a surprise net this Monday. Please send your net ideas to November Tango 5, Tango Mike at w5fc.org. I've got to plan something tomorrow if no one else does. I'd sure love an interesting idea, something I've never done before. nt5tm at w5fc.org is my email address. Tonight's Afterglow movie is from 1967, but don't worry, it's in color. I guess that's something nice I can say about it. It also has a really strong jazz influence on a soundtrack if you like that kind of thing. Please join us tonight at about 10:30 or 10:35 to talk about They Came from Outer Space. And last but not least, by most unexpected announcement of the evening, there is a last-minute public service opportunity available in Granbury next Saturday, July 3rd. Yeah, way southwest of here, but who knows? Some people like to drive. It's called the Blazing Saddle Bike Rally. I don't think Mel Brooks will be there. They have a special need for SAG drivers, and yes, you have to bring your own SAG vehicle, unfortunately. But there are other opportunities as well. To find out more about this last-minute event, you can email Coach Frank at try-now.org.com. That's Coach Frank, spelled the usual way, at tri-now.com, or you can visit, oh boy, this is a mouthful, volunteersignup.org/BAA88. That's volunteersignup.org/ /Bravo Alpha Alpha 88. At least it's TM, back to net.
Thank you, Tony. Does anyone else have any announcements for this evening's net? If so, please come now with your call sign. Hearing anything, so I'll go ahead with some other announcements. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You will need EchoLink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. COM N5HYT is net control. All are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT East on that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. DARC hosts several Monday night nets, Mondays at 7 p.m. The first Monday of the month is Ham Fixin's Net. This is a cooking net. Come and share recipes, pick up new recipes, ask a question, or share an anecdote about food. Second Monday of the month is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. On the third Monday of the month, come back for a second helping of Ham Fixin's Net. And on the fourth week is GeekNet, Geek Beyond Ham Radio. And as Tony mentioned, when we have a fifth net, this Monday net, it's a surprise net. If we told you what it is, it wouldn't be a surprise. On-air participation is encouraged. At East at 8 p.m. is Q&As, info, and news for amateur satellites. And Fridays is Search City Simulation at 8 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa KI5GRH is usually the net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday. Search City, all are welcome. And Saturdays is the Night of Nets, with TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m., and Skynet from 9 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., and of course, after Skynet is the Afterglow Movie Net from 10:30 to midnight. First and third Sundays is the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. And daily is the ARRL Net National Traffic System Training Net every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. As tonight, after Skynet, we have the Afterglow Movie Net. This is the net, if you're new to the net, this is where we watch a movie during the week, and we come back and discuss it on the Afterglow Movie Net. We discuss the plot, characterization, physics, any trivia, special effects, anything related to the film. And so we have our Afterglow info. So at this time, I will return the net to Tom, KE5ICX, if you will give us tonight Afterglow info from KF5TDS. www.ksfm.com, and you can keep up with all of the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. And speaking of the club website, you can go to the club website right now and check in electronically to this evening's net. So I was just looking at our check-in log, and I don't see any more check-ins, but just wanted to throw that out there. You can go to the website, click on the hot link, and check into the net. Next up is, let's see, we'll now take some additional voice check-ins. So Tom, if you'll throw a shout-out and see if we have any voice check-ins, and then we'll move on to our next segment. So this is to KE5ICX from KFI-TDS.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. And welcome, Virginia, to Skynet. All right, next up is the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. So this time I will turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA, and if you'll give us some information about Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas from KF5TDS.
Thank you, Billy. This is KF5JHA, Chaz, and Bob the Cat, broadcasting from the suburbs of the Milky Way galaxy. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held, well, actually, the last one was held last night on Friday, July the 26th. The meeting was held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas. There was also a Zoom component. The featured speaker was Frank. He is an astrophotographer. Those were the people that presented the information. All about astrophotography. And I'll talk about that a little bit, what I've recently got into a little bit later on. Now, Saturday night public observing sessions continue. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. Now, on the fourth Saturday of the month, the stargazing is held at Rockwell. Unfortunately, tonight's stargazing was canceled, I think, a little bit early because there were clouds. Last time I looked out, most of the clouds had dissipated. Oh well. Check the TASS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about the meetings and public observing sessions. And this is KF5JHA, back to KF5PDS.
Thank you, Chaz, and I'm glad Bob is there too. All right, next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Bill, N5BB. The net is yours from KF5CDS.
Thank you, Billy. This is N5BB, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I happen to be the membership director and the member at large of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. Our meetings are held on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. So our next meeting is going to be on Sunday afternoon, August the 11th. And the meeting location is at Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving, southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline. Our meeting starts at 3:30, and the presentation starts at 4. We had a speaker lined up, but because the topic is changing, that speaker probably will not want to talk to us. The original meeting was set up months ago. It was Mars a sample return. But that's changed completely in the last few months, and so I think we're going to have to get a different speaker. So we don't know for sure who the speaker will be. Our chapter had an event yesterday. This is in 5BB, and today. Yesterday, we had our standard event on the last Friday of each month. We call it Space Rendezvous. Anybody can attend. You don't have to be a member of our group. And we're meeting at Cheddar's Restaurant on Highway 635 in North Irving. And we meet at 6 p.m. on the last Friday of every month. And so we met there with several people there at our meeting. We had 5 people. It's just a social event, but we talked about space things. Then today, several of us, let's see how many, 4 of us, were at the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History in the Museum District in Fort Worth. And they had a space day today. And so we were there with the science part of Space Day. Of course, there were all kinds of people dressed up in fictional characters. And there were dinosaurs and all kinds of other things. People in dinosaur costumes. There was even somebody dressed up in a dinosaur in a spacesuit costume, believe it or not. But our group had NASA literature and other things there. So we were talking to people about what humans do in space, the reality of that. Like the Artemis II mission coming up in another year or two, which is going to take us around the moon. That's all I have right now. If you have any interest in the National Space Society or our local chapter, you can contact me, Bill Byram, N5BB, at my address on QRZ, or send an email to space@byram.net. That's SPACE at BYROM.net. Thank you very much. This is N5BB.
Bill, this is KFI TDS Billy. This is your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is discussion topic of the evening. So tonight for my topic, I'm going to be doing an introduction to Earth-Moon-Earth communication, aka moon bounce. I gave this presentation at Moon Day, so it was great seeing folks at Moon Day at the Amateur Radio Club booth helping out. Thank you for helping the club. And it was great to see everybody. It was a wonderful Moon Day. Lots of setups, lots of different clubs and associations there. Rocket building, robotics, Astronomical Society. Texas Astronomical Society had a booth there. Inflatable planetarium, and lots of good talks. And of course, astronaut Gregory Johnson was there to give a main keynote presentation about his experiences on space shuttle missions. So it was really good. And he did autograph session at the end, and you could get to meet him and talk with him a little bit. So it was really an honor to meet him, and his experiences were really interesting. And he's a great storyteller. So if you ever get a chance to hear him, it's definitely worth it. He had a fun presentation. All right, so moon bounce, Earth-Moon-Earth communication. So first up, what is EME? So it's communication, it's a radio communications technique that relies on the propagation of radio waves from an Earth-based transmitter directly reflected from the surface of the moon back to an Earth-based receiver. Just a very brief history of EME. This is from the National Museum in Washington, D.C. July 24th, 1954, Naval Research Laboratory at Stumpneck, Maryland, which is now the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Indian Head, Maryland, sent and received the first human voice transmission to be bounced back to Earth from the moon. January 1956, the U.S. Navy transmitting teletype signals to and from Stumpneck and Wahiawa on Oahu, Hawaii. And January 1960, Navy's communication moon relay system is transmitting two-way radio communications. And on December 15th, 1961, there was the first successful Navy transmission from a ground station to a ship via the moon from Stumpneck to the USS Oxford in the Atlantic Ocean, about 1,500 miles from Maryland. And following this success, a 5-meter or 16-foot steerable parabolic antenna and transmitter were installed on the USS Oxford to allow two-way communication. At the same time, 1961, the NSA had begun developing signals intelligence, SIGINT, collecting ships, which needed secure ship-to-shore communications. High frequency was unreliable due to remote ship locations and vulnerability to foreign direction finding, so moon bounce was the solution. There were also Auxiliary General Technical Research Ships, or AGTR. They are larger and faster converted World War II Liberty and Victory class cargo ships. They carried oceanographic equipment and personnel, which created a valid cover for covert activities. And the first created a ship was created, and so a ship anywhere in the world could transmit beaming microwave transmissions toward the moon. And the first TRSS comm station was in Cheltenham, Maryland. And in 1964, TRSS comm proved feasible, and the system was implemented in all AGTRs and all 4 ground stations. On the National Museum website, they have a really good picture of the steerable antenna that was operated by technician F.E. Smith and communications technician second class R.C. Gobe, operating it aboard the USS Oxford. So how does amateur radio get into Earth-Moon-Earth communications? The first amateur radio EME took place in 1953. Amateur frequency bands from 50 megahertz to 47 gigahertz have been used successfully, but most EME communications are on the 2-meter, 70 centimeter, or 23 centimeter bands. 2 meters from 144 to 148 megahertz, 70 centimeters 420 to 450 megahertz, and the amateur part of the band for 23 centimeters is 902 to 928. And all those are on the ARRL band plan. Common modes are continuous wave CW with Morse code, digital using JT65, and voice when link budgets allow. There are some challenges with EME, as you could well imagine. First up, very obviously, there is the long distance and time delay. Average distance to the moon is about 238,855 miles. Then the return distance back to Earth is twice this distance. The wave propagation to the moon and back ranges from 2.4 to 2.7 seconds, which is about 2.55 seconds on average. The signal attenuation or reduction of energy. Lunar surface has low reflectivity due to composition of the lunar material in the regular surface. Return signal is significantly weaker than the signal sent to the moon. The propagation path is line of sight, so the signal strength follows the inverse square law, or 1 over d squared. Since the round trip distance is twice as long, signal strength at the receiving end will be proportionate to 1 over d to the 4th, so it is significantly. There is also a Doppler effect. Different frequencies will have different Doppler offsets. 0 when the moon is directly overhead. Also, this causes problems when tuning into a signal and locking onto a signal from the moon. There's also polarization effects. can reduce the strength of received signals. One component is the geometrical alignment of the transmitting and receiving antennas. Stations may have a facility to rotate antennas to adjust polarization. And there's also Faraday rotation, which is the polarization plane of radio waves rotates as radio waves pass through Earth's ionized layer of atmosphere. Earth is rotating, Moon is rotating, and Moon's going around the Earth, and Earth-Moon system is going around the Sun, so there's a lot of moving parts. So there are a lot of challenges to overcome. But people do overcome this, and they indulge in this hobby quite readily. So it is possible to do. You just have to learn how to recognize these challenges and overcome them. So there are some example setups, which I found on QSL.net. There's a beginner's guide to small station EME that was written by Paul Bach, K4MSG, and he shows several different setups on his PDF document that you can find on QSL.net. So I just highlighted a couple that were on 2 meter, 144 megahertz EME with Vox. One way to do it is with a multi-mode 2 meter transceiver or an HF transceiver with a 2 meter transverter so that it will convert the frequencies in order to use the 2 meter band. At least 100 watts at the antenna, low noise preamp, 2 meter Yagi, and low loss coax as short as possible. One setup. Another one that is highlighted on that document is quick and easy 2 meter EME using JT65B using Vox. So using a laptop running JT65 going out to a 2 meter SSB transceiver. And it's optional if you want to use a solid-state power amplifier or a low-noise amplifier running out to the antenna with 100 watts going to the antenna. And on Paul Bach's document, he also shows a lot of other systems set up for not just 2 meters, but he's got a lot of other pictures showing like 23 meters, 70 centimeter setups. So if you're interested in that, you can go to QSL.net. It's just called the Beginner's Guide to Small Station EME, and you can look that up. On the Wikipedia website, there are several pictures in their gallery of EME antennas. Some of the ones that I highlighted was an array of 8 Yagi antennas for 2 meter EME at EA6DQ in the Balearic Islands in Spain. Another one was a dish antenna for microwave EME work at WA6TY in California in the United States. And just one more example that I included in my talk was an amateur radio antenna array that was also 2 meters that was located in Kilafors in Middle Sweden. And they have a very impressive antenna with the owner standing proudly next to their ham shack in a very nice forested area. I imagine with that impressive equipment, they get the signal out too. And I was talking with some folks, and we can discuss this after I just wrap up. These folks that have these very large systems are pumping out signals that can be picked up on Earth from stations that aren't needing to transmit to. You can pick up signals that are being bounced without such powerful equipment. You can also get QSL cards. These are just a confirmed, two-way amateur radio communication. They're postcards. People do very fun designs, have very unique QSL cards. I have a QSL card from a satellite contact that wasn't an Earth, Moon, Earth, but I did that out of Hamcom, and we just did via radio. And then the gentleman sent me a QSL card, so you can collect QSL cards for EME. There is a website, radioqth.net, where you can just create a free printable QSL card. So if you're not looking for anything fancy, you can design your own. I just went out and designed a sample one for my but you can order cards, QSL cards that are very fancy with very specific. put a picture of my, one of the pictures I took of the moon on my QSL card, and other people take a picture with their antenna with the moon in the background and very nice images. So those, you can use your creative flair to come up with your own QSL card. And of course, I gave a plug for the club. If people were interested in ham radio, they could go visit the folks at the main hangar at Frontiers of Flight Museum. And so out there is looking for a club, you can get in touch with our folks. And then I gave references to the ARRL band plan. Again, the Paul Box K4MSG that was on QSL.net, Beginner's Guide to Small Station EME. National Air and Space Museum, Washington, D.C., which is where the history information on Operation Moonbounce comes from. There's also a very nice site out there by VU2NSB, Art, Science, and Technology of Radio Communication. That website delves into a lot more and topics, and also a lot more of the science and the math, and if you're really interested in getting into the technicalities of different radio communications. And of course, for general information, you can go. So there's my information, intro to Moonbounce, Earth-Moon, Earth communications. My goal in the next year is to actually perform one and then report back to Moon Day with an actual first-hand experience of how I did an Earth-Moon, Earth communication, what equipment I used, the challenges and pitfalls that I encountered, and then actually doing an EME. So, and if the moon is out, which it wasn't this time for Moon Day, it would be cool to do a live demo. But in the case that there's not, I can at least report back my experience. This is KFI TDS, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Is there anyone on frequency that has any information or comments or has an experience with Earth-Moon Earth communication that you would like to share, or any other information if you've done one, or have any advice on equipment? Please come now with your call sign.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey.
Hi, JDW. John, good evening. Do you have some information to add, or have you done an Earth-Moon Earth contact?
Well, have been to one. I have a comment and a question both. When I lived in DeSoto, there was a group that used to visit Cedar Hill Park. Cedar Hill Park. And they set up out there, and he had a big huge array. Had, I think, 2 rows of 4 antennas. Looked like I think it was like 2 rows of 4 antennas. And he was beaming them up the moon, sending stuff back. It reminded me when I was a kid. The satellite echo was a really big deal, and it kind of reminded me of that when he explained it to me and stuff. And I just wondered, my question was, Brenda may know, she lives in DeSoto, does anybody know if that group is still meeting out there? K5 JDW.
That's very cool. Yeah, it'd be awesome if they were. Brenda or anybody else on the net, do you know if that Cedar Hill Park EME group is still functioning? If so, please come now with your call sign and share any info that you have. I'm not hearing anything, but maybe that's something that we can look into, and if they are, that would be really cool. Number one, to see the equipment that they're using, but also to be able just to do that. I'm just really interested in this and would love to be able to perform an EME. Is there anyone else on frequency that has any information to add about Earth-Moon Earth communication? Have you done one, seen one? Have the equipment to do one? Have any advice on equipment? If so, please come now with your call sign. hearing anything, so maybe that's something that we can all investigate and look into, and if he has any information later, feel free to get in touch with me about it. I would love to hear your experience and would love to get any advice on equipment. All right, looking on our check-in list, I don't see that anybody new has checked in, but I'm going to throw it over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll do a quick voice check-in round, and then you have my permission to turn the net over to Chaz for What's Up. So this is the KE5ICX from KF5TDS.
Point. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Oscar for Whiskey Charlie X-Ray, and Paul coming in via Echo Link from North Carolina.
Okay, very good. We did pick up one more. We've got Paul, KO4WCX in North Carolina. Welcome, Paul, and you're welcome to come back next week at the same time, or just to tune in on Saturday nights for sure, because we're here all night long. So I've got him checked in. So next up is Chaz, KF5JHA, and Bob the Cat. What do you have for What's Up this evening?
Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. Once again, this is Chaz, KF5JHA, broadcasting from beautiful suburbs of the Milky Way galaxy. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up because it's all about what's going on astronomically over the next couple of weeks and beyond. That was slide number 2. If you didn't know, we have a video version of Skynet. Go to w5fc.org and you can find a link. I haven't done it for a while, but I usually listen to the YouTube version and watch it. Slide Master, slide number 3. About 10 days ago, I received a telescope camera that I had ordered. It's called the ZWO C-Star S50. It was cloudy on that Wednesday, so I was unable to use it then. But the next day, slide Master, slide number 4, on July the 18th, I was able to take this picture of the sun using a provided solar filter. The details of the sunspots was really impressive to me. Beautiful picture. So, slide master, slide number 5. Later that evening on July the 18th, I took this picture of the moon. We just talked about the moon, didn't we, Billy? Again, the level of details within the first picture of the moon, and that's the only picture I've taken of the moon with the ZWO C-Star S50. It's remarkable. Now, you can look ahead to more pictures that I'll share with you on the video version of Skynet in the future. So, slide master, slide number 6, please. Today, on July the 27th, the moon is at third quarter. The moon will be new on August the 4th. On August the 9th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth, at a distance of 405,297 kilometers. On August the 12th is the first quarter phase of the moon. On August the 19th, the moon is full. On August the 21st, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 360,196 kilometers. Slide master, slide number 7, please. On July the 29th, there's a conjunction of the moon and the planet Uranus and the star cluster M45, also known as the Pleiades, in the early morning sky. Slide master, slide number 8. 3 meteor showers peak on the night of July the 29th to the 30th. The Alpha Capricornids, the Southern Delta Aquarids, and the July Gamma Draconids. All have between 5 up to 100 meteors per hour. Now, how do you tell which meteor is associated with which meteor shower? You need to draw a line backwards from the path of the meteor to determine what radiant point the meteor has come from. More about meteors in a little bit. Slide Master, slide number 9. On July the 30th, there's a conjunction of the Moon and Mars and the star cluster M45, which is again known as the Pleiades, in the early morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 10. On August the 5th, in the western evening sky, there's a conjunction of the Moon and the planet Venus and the bright star Regulus. Now, it's going to be in twilight, so you probably need a pair of binoculars to see it. Slide Master, slide number 11. On August the 7th, in the western evening sky, you could observe the conjunction of the Moon and the minor planet Juno. You will need to have a pair of binoculars or a telescope in order to see the minor planet Juno. Slide Master, slide number 12. On the night of August the 11th and 12th is the peak of the Perseid meteor shower, probably the best known meteor shower since it happens in the warm summer for the northern hemisphere. Around 100 meteors per hour can be observed during the peak. Now, the best time to observe meteors is usually the hour before dawn in the morning sky. You can get more information about meteors and meteor showers at www.imo.net or the American Meteor Society at www.amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 13. On August the 13th, in the southern evening sky, the Moon and the bright star Antares are in conjunction. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 14, please. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come now with your call sign if you need a fill or have a question.
KF5PLL, Huey Richardson.
PLL, good to hear from you. What's your question or comment?
This question is for our resident astronomer. Sagittarius, the constellation of the month, is often depicted as a Centaur, but we also have a designated Centaurus constellation. How did that happen? Back to net.
Way back a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Oh, no. Okay, that's something. You know, we have several different kinds of dogs in the sky. We have Canis Major, Canis Minor, Canis Venatici. So we have lots of dogs in the sky. We have 2 lions in the sky. So we have multiples of several different constellations. It just, you know, they didn't have television or internet or YouTube or ham radio back a long time ago. So they used the sky as their storybook. And they looked up in the sky and imagined some of the characters from the stories. And, well, we happened to get a couple of centaurs in the sky. Must have been an interesting creature, half human, half horse. I hope I answered your question. Did I? PLL?
Yes, sir. It sounds like a horse of another color. KF5PLL. Back to net.
Oh, I'm not going to buck that one. Okay. All right. Slide number 15. So as the moon wanes right now, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. Until next time, actually, I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JHA, broadcasting from the suburbs of the Milky Way galaxy. Back to our net control, KF5PDS. Billy, it's back to you.
Thank you, Chaz. This is KF5TDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is space exploration and space history. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Kelly, K5KTX. The net is yours from KF5TDS. Billy, this is K5KTX. Kelly, good evening, everyone. Well, scientists were stunned on May 30th when a rock that NASA's Curiosity rover drove over cracked open to reveal something never seen before on the red planet, yellow sulfur crystals. Since October 2023, the rover has been exploring a region of Mars rich with sulfates, a kind of salt that contains sulfur and forms as water evaporates. But where past detections have been of sulfur-based minerals, in other words, a mix of sulfur and other materials, the rock Curiosity recently cracked open is made of elemental or pure sulfur. It isn't clear what relationship, if any, the elemental sulfur has to other sulfur-based minerals in the area. While people associate sulfur with the odor from rotten eggs, the result of hydrogen sulfide gas, elemental sulfur is odorless. It forms in only a narrow range of conditions that scientists haven't associated with the history of this location. And Curiosity found a lot of it, an entire field of bright rocks that look similar to the one the rover crushed. One of several discoveries Curiosity has made while off-roading within Geddes Vallis Channel, a groove that winds down part of the 3-mile-tall Mount Sharp, the base of which the rover has been ascending since 2014. Since Curiosity's arrival at the channel earlier this year, scientists have studied whether ancient floodwaters or landslides built up the large mounds of debris that rise up from the channel's floor here. The latest clues from Curiosity suggest both played a role. Some piles were likely left by violent flows of water and debris, while others appear to be the result of more local landslides. This evidence of water continues to tell a more complex story than the team's early expectations, and they've been eager to take a rock sample from the channel in order to learn more. On June 18th, they got their chance. While the sulfur rocks were too small and brittle to be sampled with the drill, a large rock nicknamed Mammoth Lake was spotted nearby. Rover engineers had to search for a part of the rock that would allow safe drilling and find a parking spot on the loose, sloping surface. After Curiosity bored its 41st hole using the powerful drill at the end of the rover's 7-foot robotic arm, the 6-wheeled scientists trickled the powderized rock into the instruments inside its belly for further analysis so that scientists can determine what materials the rock is made of. Curiosity has since driven away from Mammoth Lakes and is now off to see what other surprises are waiting to be discovered within the channel. And by the way, the drill bit at the end of that robotic arm, the drill, was bought at Home Depot, and that's a true story. Now, in space history for this past week, starting with July 21st back in 1961, Mercury Redstone 4 launched, which was the second United States human spaceflight. Astronaut Virgil Gus Grissom flew for 15 minutes and 30 seconds while reaching an altitude of 102.8 nautical miles. Grissom made it home safely, but not without a scare. Upon landing, the Liberty Bell 7 had emergency explosive bolts unexpectedly fire and blew the hatch off, causing water to flood the spacecraft. He would be saved by an emergency helicopter in the ocean. The Liberty Bell 7 was recovered in 1999 and is now on display at the Cosmosphere in Hutchinson, Kansas. Also on July 21st, back in 1966, Gemini 10 splashed down in the ocean after breaking a world altitude record for human spaceflight and being the first mission to include 2 spacewalks. With Gemini 10, NASA gained critical experience and knowledge, particularly in the areas of rendezvous, docked maneuvering, extravehicular activity, and controlled re-entry. Aboard the spacecraft were 2 astronauts, John Young, command pilot, and Mike Collins, pilot. Young would go on to fly to the moon twice, commanding the Apollo 16 lunar landing in 1972, and then the first space shuttle mission in 1981. Collins, on his second flight, piloted the command module Columbia and remained in lunar orbit for the Apollo 11 mission. July 22nd, back in 1972, Venera 8 landed on Venus sending back data about its surface for an hour before succumbing to the harsh climate. Venera, the Russian word for Venus, was a series of Soviet space probes developed between 1961 and 1984 to observe Venus and its atmosphere. Venera 4, launched in 1967, became the first human-made object to enter the atmosphere of another planet. Venera 7, launched in 1970, became the first to make a soft landing and to transmit data back to Earth. Venera 8 confirmed the data collected by Venera 7 and also measured the light levels at the surface of Venus, finding them suitable for photography. This led the way for the first images from the surface of Venus, which were taken by Venera 9 on October 22, 1975. Venera 9 also included the first craft to orbit Venus. Like the other probes of the Venera series, Venera 8 recorded the extreme climate of Venus, the surface temperature of 400 and limited the operational lifetimes of these probes. However, the probes taught scientists a lot about the second planet from the Sun. July 23, 1999, Chandra X-ray Observatory was launched aboard STS-93 Columbia. It was the most powerful X-ray telescope launched up to that time. It was also one of the largest and heaviest payloads ever launched by the Space Shuttle program. Chandra orbits at an altitude of up to 86,500 miles above Earth, allowing for long observations far from the influences of Earth. The telescope has observed objects from the closest planets and comets to the most distant known quasars. It has imaged the remains of exploded stars, observed the region around the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way, and discovered black holes across the universe. Chandra has also helped make a major advance in the study of dark matter by tracing the separation of dark matter from normal matter in collisions between galaxy clusters. And at the same time, on July 23, 1999, Eileen Collins became the first female commander of a U.S. shuttle mission during the same STS-93. She was also the first female to pilot a space shuttle 4 years earlier on STS-63, and again in 1995 on STS-84. Her final space flight was commander of STS-114, which was the first return to flight following the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. She was inducted into the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame in 2013. July 24, 1969, the Apollo 11 Command Module Columbia splashed down in the mid-Pacific. All primary mission objectives and tested objectives of the first human trip to the moon were met. The crew, Commander Neil Armstrong, Command Module Pilot Michael Collins, and Lunar Module Pilot Buzz Aldrin, returned in optimal health. July 26, 1971, Apollo 15 launched with its crew, Dave Scott, Al Worden, and Jim Irwin, settling in Earth orbit in about 12 minutes. Less than 3 hours after launch, they fired up the engines again and headed toward the moon. 3 days later, they arrived at the moon and put themselves in orbit. While Worden, Command Module pilot, stayed on orbit, Scott and Irwin landed on the moon's Hadley-Appomattox site 51 years ago. Or, I guess that's not 51 years. They spent 66 hours and 55 minutes on the lunar surface from touchdown to liftoff. 18 of those hours were spent outside the lunar module exploring on foot and in the battery-powered lunar roving vehicle, the first car humans drove on the moon. They drove 17.5 miles, collected more than 170 pounds of lunar samples. With the mission duration of 12 days, Apollo 15 was a record-setting mission at the time. It was the first of the J-series missions with a lunar module that carried more equipment and consumables, improved spacesuits, more scientific equipment, and, of course, that lunar roving vehicle. Finally, we had some astronaut birthdays to celebrate this past week. July 25th, 1932, Paul Weiss. He was part of Skylab 2 and Space Shuttle mission SES-6. Also July 25th, 1957, Daniel Bursch. Space Shuttle missions STS-51, 68, 1977, and he was part of the Expedition 4 crew on the International Space Station. July 26, 1949, William Shepard, Space Shuttle missions STS-27, 41, 52, and he was on the first expedition to the International Space Station. July 26, 1951, William MacArthur, Space Shuttle missions STS-58, 74, 92, and he was on the Expedition 12 crew. And July 27, 1961, Daniel Burbank, Space Shuttle missions STS-106, 115, and he was part of the Expedition 2930 crew. And that's all I've got this evening, Billy. This is K5KTX. Back to you.
Thank you, Kelly. This is KF5CDS Billy, your net control for this section of the DARC Skynet. Looking on our electronic check-in, I don't see anyone checked in. If you're out there and you have not checked in, you can go to w5fc.org and you can use our check-in link to check into this evening's net. I would like to ask Tom if you could, KU5ICX, if you wouldn't mind doing a quick voice check-in round, see if we have anybody out there that would in via voice. And then you have my permission to turn the net over to Chaz again for Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So this is the Tom, KE5ICX from KF5CDS.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Lima Lima, Huey Richardson.
Good evening, everyone. Looks like I'm going to have to switch to Echo Link. My radio quit working for some reason. Okay, let's see. I need to get back to... Hang on, I gotta turn my radio off. Echoing, so here we go. Slide number 16, please. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. In honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total constellations.
So Ms. Carolyn covered the entire sky seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her, Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week. Centaurus, the Centaur. We talked about Centaur just a little bit ago. Centaurus is the mythological creature that is half human and half horse. Centaurus is an archer, but most people see Centaurus looking like a teapot. In fact, it's a hot teapot. You can see it's a hot teapot because you can see the steam coming out of the spout and spanning the entire sky. The steam is actually the Milky Way. Master slide number 17. The most important part of Skynet, of course, are the jokes of the week. Here we go. Did you hear about the man that was hospitalized with 6 plastic horses inside of him? The doctor describes his condition as stable. What did the horse say when it fell? I've fallen and I can't giddy up. You know a horse is sick because he's a pony, a little horse. You make a small fortune on horse racing. Well, you start out with a large fortune, of course. Side of the horse has the most hair. I don't want to echo and tell me that answer. The outside, of course. And the final one, here we go. The horse walks into the bar. The bartender says, "Hey!" And the horse says, "Buddy, you read my mind." Slide master, slide number 18, please. I'd like to talk about a few stars in the constellation of the week, but not this week. Sagittarius happens to be in the direction of the center of the Milky Way galaxy. At the center of the Milky Way galaxy is a black hole with a mass of more than 1 million suns. The constellation of Sagittarius is full of globular clusters, open clusters, nebula, and much more. So I'll only talk about one double star, Nanuki. Nanuki is located at the handle of the teapot. Primarily star is about 227 light years away from us and shines at second magnitude. The spectroscopic secondary star is a binary as well and is close to visibility. There's a close by 9th magnitude star that I use for astronomy to use as a visual binary star in a star system. Master slide number 19. Messier object number 8 is the famous Lagoon Nebula. Easily visible and to the naked eye from a dark sky site, and made is obviously a nebula in even the smallest instruments, binoculars, finder scopes, small aperture telescopes. The associated star cluster, NGC 6530, is easily seen in small telescopes as well. The nebulosity appears weakest around the cluster. Master slide number 20. 20 is the Trifid Nebula. What makes this object famous is that in one of the pictures used on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise on the original Star Trek TV show, you can see the picture. Now you can see the nebulosity, both the brighter red emission nebula and the fainter blue reflection nebula, but it's hard to see the dark dust lanes that are streaked across the emission nebula through moderate-sized telescopes. With averted vision, you can just barely start to see some of the dark lanes. As Dave Hutchinson so aptly points out in the Past Spectrum article, that M20 contains all 3 types of nebula: emission nebula, reflection nebula, and dark nebula. Master slide number 21. M17 is the Swan, or the Omega Nebula. The nebula's swan appears to be easily down. As one happy and thrilled observer in the upper observing field at a Texas star party in the past pointed out, for all that here, it really does look like a swan. The brightest part of the nebula makes the shape much like a check mark. The name Omega Nebula comes from the curved portion of the nebula that forms the swan's neck and head. Some observers have likened this to the shape of the Greek letter omega. Slide master, slide number 22, please. '22 is a beautiful globular cluster. This is what a globular cluster is supposed to look like. It resolves into dozens of stars easily seen at even 41 power. And higher power view is visible streak with a core almost totally resolved and many bright pixel stars visible. M22 is one of the showpiece globular clusters along with M13, M5, 47 Tucani, and Omega Centauri. There are so many globular clusters that I talk about, like M54, M70, M69, M28, M55, and M75, and many more. But I'm afraid that might take another 20 minutes, and darn it, we don't have that much time left. Master, slide number 23, please. GC, which stands for New General Catalog 6818, where the Little Gem Nebula is a nice planetary nebula. Unlike many planetaries, which look star-like at low power, this little gem is fairly obvious. At high power, it is round and gray with a hint of some faint outer blue. It's large enough and bright enough that it has earned its place on the Astronomical League Observing Club for the urban-located observers. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 24. Now, there are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Centaurus the Centaur. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 74 different observing programs. Most of them have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year from the Astronomical League. And slide master, slide number 25. That is Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Centaurus the Centaur. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson, Dennis Farwell for their research and work on deep sky objects that I use, borrow and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now next week we'll take a look at, all right, I don't know if I can play it. Okay, I'll harp on you with Lyra. That is KF5JJ 73, everyone. Backdoor net control.
Thank you very much, Chaz. Looking at our check-in list, I don't see anybody else checking in. So this time I'll turn the net over to Tom, KE5ITX, if you'll give us space launches for this week from KF5TDS.
Oh, thank you, Billy. I'll do exactly that. Let's see. I get all my information from spaceflightnow.com /launch schedule. And I added this in. The FAA has cleared SpaceX Falcon 9 for flight. While investigation into the accident prevented the second stage from firing on a recent mission is still under investigation, the FAA found no danger for those on the ground. SpaceX feels confidence they know what caused the oxidizer leak on board the Falcon second stage and will return to flight within the week. So we'll just have to wait and see how that all plays out. But I think they're going to start launching here in a day or two. Okay, with that, I'll give you the information. July 28th, if everything is A-OK, the Falcon 9 will launch the Starlink 10-4 mission from Cape Canaveral, SLC-40. It'll be another batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. Following stage separation, the booster will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. We have the Atlas V launch on July 30th, USSF. This will be from SLC-41 at Cape Canaveral. The Atlas V rocket, designated AB-101, will launch the USSF-51 mission for the U.S. Space Force. This mission will launch an undisclosed payload for the military. July 30th, 31st, overnight will be the launch of an Electron, Owl for One, Owl for All. This is in New Zealand from the Mahia Peninsula Launch Complex 1. The Rocket Lab Electron rocket will launch a StriX synthetic aperture radar satellite, or SAR, on behalf of the Japanese Earth observation company Synspective. Following the deployment of the satellite, the Rocket Lab said the rocket's kick stage would perform an advanced mid-mission maneuver to shield the satellite from the sun and reduce radiation exposure. There'll be a launch from Launch Complex 39A from Cape Kennedy. This will launch the Crew Dragon spacecraft. The Polaris Dawn mission will be commanded by billionaire Jared Isaacman, making his second trip into space. He's joined by an all-private mission by pilot Scott Kidd Poteet and SpaceX employees Sarah Gillis and Anna Menon. The Crew Dragon will return to a splashdown at sea. Then we have another Falcon 9 mission sometime in July. This will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch the Arctic Satellite Broadband mission consisting of 2 satellites owned by Space Norway. The Falcon 9 will launch the 2 Northrop Grumman-built satellites into a highly elliptic orbit that lingers over the Arctic Ocean. The satellites carry communication payloads for the Norwegian Ministry of Defense and the U.S. Space Force and Inmarsat. Then we have a launch in August, Falcon 9 Worldview Legion 3 and 4. This will launch from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. These pair of Earth observation satellites from Maxar Technologies, they plan to deploy 6 commercial Worldview Legion high-resolution remote sensing satellites into a mix of sun-synchronous and mid-inclination orbits on 3 SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets. Then we have, let's see here, Falcon 9 Transporter 11 launch from Vandenberg, SLC-4E. This will launch 12 satellites in sun-synchronous orbit on the company's 11th such ride-share program. Among the payloads are the European Space Agency's Arctic Weather Satellite, UK-based Surrey satellites, Tyche satellite for UK Space Command, Japan-based IQPS and QPS-SAR-8 satellite, and the US-based Planet Labs Tanager 1. Then we have in the third quarter Bluebird Block 1 launch from SLC-40, Cape Canaveral, Florida. SpaceX. This will be a Falcon 9 rocket. It will launch a 700 square foot Block 1 Bluebird satellite on behalf of its customer AST Space Mobile. That's all I have on it. We have, let's see, a certification flight 2 for the Vulcan, SLC-41 from Cape Canaveral. This rocket will carry ballast and a collection of small payloads. ULA changed this mission when it became clear the original payload, Sierra Space Dream Chaser cargo ship, would not be ready for launch. This second test flight is needed to gain certification from the U.S. military to fly national security payloads. So it was important they proved that this could launch something into orbit. There's a Vulcan Centaur launch to be determined with Dream Chaser 1. There it is, from SLC-41. United Launch Alliance Vulcan Centaur rocket will launch its second demonstration flight of the Dream Chaser cargo vehicle for the International Space Station. The Dream Chaser is a lifting body resupply spacecraft that will launch on top of a rocket and land on a runway. It will be Dream Chaser's first flight into space. The Vulcan Centaur rocket will fly in the VC-4L configuration with 4 GEM 63XL solid rocket booster, a long-length payload fairing, and 2 RL-10 engines for the Centaur upper stage. And then finally, there'll be test flight 1 for the Eris that will launch from Pad 1 at Bowen Orbital Spaceport in Australia. It's preparing for the launch of the inaugural flight of the Eris Block 1 rocket. The 3-stage launch vehicle is 82 feet tall and is equipped with a 4.9 diameter payload fairing. The rocket is designated to send up to 305 kilograms into low Earth orbit. This first mission, called Test Flight 1, does not appear to have a payload on board. And that's it from me. Back to you, Miss Billy. This is KE5ICX.
I just noticed that you were going to do the recent astronomical discoveries that we're getting pretty short on time. Did you want to give a brief synopsis of the articles, at least? And then if you could maybe do a final voice check-in and give me a final count for this evening's net, I'd appreciate it. So this is back to Tom, KE5ICX from KFI-TDS.
Yeah, I'll give you the short synopses that they give at the top of the article. This comes from Science Daily. Brenda at WB50ZL picked this article out. But essentially it says astronomers have untangled a messy collision between two massive clusters of galaxies in which the cluster's vast clouds of dark matter have decoupled from the so-called normal matter. The two clusters each contain thousands of galaxies and are located billions of light years away from Earth. As they plowed through each other, the dark matter, an invisible substance that feels the force of gravity but emits no light, sped ahead of the normal matter. The new observations are the first to directly probe the decoupling of dark and normal matter velocities. And you can go to sciencedaily.com under releases for today's day, or for this month's 07/24, the 24th, and you can get the complete article there. I'll go ahead and take final check-ins if there's anyone else who'd like to join us before we close the net. Now's the time. Please come with your call sign, phonetically your name and where you're transmitting from.
Papa, Kilo India 5, Charlie, Papa, Tim in Kaufman.
Okay, I've got KI5CCP. That's Tim and Kaufman. That makes check-in, if my math is correct, and you're better at math than I, 27 check-ins. So back to you, Miss Billy, from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, a copy that we had tonight, 27 hams participating on the air. So thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your net at w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5TDS, Billy, and I'll be closing the net at 22:30 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And thanks to those who used our new electronic check-in system on its inaugural flight. So it made things very easy. People would use it in the future. And remember, in about 5 minutes, stay tuned for the Afterglow movie net. 73, everybody.
This is KF5JJ. I think I got the radio working. I just turn it off, turn it back on, reset it. Oh well. Have a good night, everyone. 73.
Yeah, it sounds fine, Chaz. Not sure what happened, but you're working fine now. Go figure after the net's over. This is KE5ICX. We'll come back in about 5 minutes. Go powder your noses, make some popcorn, and then join us for They Came from Beyond Space. Whatever beyond space might be. But at any rate, actually they're from the moon. Just don't tell anybody. We'll be back then. KE5ICX. Okay, you probably wondered what happened to me. Well, I went and made popcorn. Yes, I made popcorn because I like popcorn, and we're talking about movies. So hopefully you popped your popcorn. Sounds kind of strange, doesn't it? This is KE5ICX. I'll be your net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. Tonight's Afterglow Movie Net is called They Came from Beyond Space from 1967. This is a 1967 movie, British Eastman color science fiction film directed by Freddie Francis, starring the famous Robert Hutton, Jennifer Jane, Zia somebody, and Bernard Kay. It's produced by Max J. Rosenberg and Milton Sapkowski. The screenplay was by Sapkowski, based on an actual novel from 1941 called The Gods Hate Kansas. Oh, I kind of knew that. Oh, I was told I didn't have... There I am. Okay, the stream says they couldn't see me, so there I am. Okay, the narrative follows the adventures of a scientist who tries to stop space aliens who are made of pure energy from enslaving humans in order to rebuild their spaceship so they can return to their home planet. The film is from Amicus Productions. You may remember this because they're the ones that did At the Earth's Core, the same people with the same terrible blue screen effect, also in this film as was in At the Earth's Core, which we watched a couple of weekends ago. This film was with a double bill with The Terrornauts, also from 1967. I have no idea what that movie is about. Now, surprisingly, this thing has a long plot summary. I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs, and then you can use your imagination, or don't use your imagination, because the people who made this film didn't, as to how this thing would end. At any rate, it goes as follows. This is an unusual V-shaped formation of meteorites has fallen in Cornwall. Scientists are appointed to investigate. However, their leader, Dr. Curtis Temple, who is recovering from an automotive accident, has a silver plate in his head, is forbidden by his physician from going. Curtis turns the mission over to Lee Mason, his colleague and lover. Arriving at the site, the scientists find the meteorites to be unusual in shape and color, or as they say in Canada, colour. Oh, and England. Sorry, that's what I meant. England. They're rather pointy and blue. They also house aliens who exist as pure energy. The geologist attempts to chisel off a piece of the meteorite. As a result, the rock emits a flash of light and a screech as the aliens take over the scientists' bodies and minds. Concerned that the only contact with Lee has been her requisitions for millions of pounds worth of equipment, including weapons. Oh, lots of weapons. Curtis decides to visit the site despite his MD orders. But before he leaves, a fellow scientist determines that the meteorites have come from the moon. Upon arrival, Curtis finds the site resembles a military post with armed guards. Herself bars him from entering. An agent from the internal security, not internet, this is 67, has been tailing Curtis. However, he must phone his superior for permission to give Curtis a full situation report. He enters a phone box to place the call, then stumbles out covered with red spots and falls dying to the ground. The crowd gathers. The doctor steps forward, but after touching the agent, he too dies, and then each member of the crowd succumbs. The press dubs the unknown disease the Crimson Plague. Although no cause or cure is discovered, the authorities develop a secret method by safely disposing of the victims' bodies. I think I'm going to end it there. There's more to come, but we'll be talking about this because what else are we going to do for the next hour and a half? Okay, this is the drill. What I will do is take check-ins. Once I take check-ins, then we'll talk about the plot, followed by the cast and characters and how they played out, and then finally the special, or in this case, the not-so-special effects from the film. This has a really nifty elevator in it, and that's all they do. Okay, so with that, I will take check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come with your call sign, phonetically your name And did you see tonight's movie, They Came from Beyond Space? Actually, they came from the moon.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony, here in East Dallas. Oh, yes, I did see it.
This is N5BB. November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Yes, I saw it. And Tom, the actual name was They Came from Outer Space.
This is Alpha India 5, Quebec Echo, and I watched It Came from Outer Space, which is a different movie, because that was going to be my big surprise, is I watched the wrong movie.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. I did see the movie.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, Doing 5, BLT, Bill, and I saw the movie twice. South Carolina, Doing 5, BLT.
Okay, yes, there is some confusion here, and I will sort that out in just a second. Let me just say who we have checked in. We got NT5TM, Tony, East Dallas. Yes, he saw the movie. N5BB, Bill. Yes, he saw a movie. He may have seen It Came from Outer Space. The movie really is They Came from Beyond Space. And my apologies, I may have written it down wrong, but it did have a date of 1967 on it. There is another film, I think, from 1975, and it's called They Came from Outer Space. And there's also a film called It Came from Outer Space. There's a lot of these with the It Came From in the title, and that caused confusion. Next up, AI5QE. Let me do my crib sheet here. QE. That would be Bob. He did not see the movie, but he did see one of the other They Came films. So don't worry, Bob. You'll get an opportunity to talk about whatever you want. Whichever They Came you saw, you can discuss. NB5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, she saw the film. W5BLT, Bill, somewhere he saw the film as well. Anyone else want to join us this evening for the movie They Came from Beyond Space? Please come with your call and your name, and did you see the film? Okay, no one else, but Brenda is there. She has no radio right now that works, so but I'm going to check her in. She's going to type in comments like she did last week. So WB50ZL, Brenda, I've got you there at the end, so you can frantically type whatever you want to. I know you saw the movie because you and I watched it with someone else. Who did we watch it with? I forget. Randy and someone else. Oh, Virginia. Virginia watched it with us. Okay. We'll start at the top. Tony, you get first dibs on this film. So, NT5TM, what did you think about the plot? They Came from Beyond Space.
Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, check in only.
Tom, I'm not sure if I should go ahead or not.
Okay, well, let me acknowledge John, K5JDW. He didn't see the movie, I don't think, but he is checking in. Thank you, John. So, Tony, go ahead, NT5TM.
Tom, thank you. I have to tell a little bit of a story here. I work in the web software development world. Sometimes I do things that are very behind the scenes that you never see, or sometimes it's my job to implement someone else's graphic design. Oh, put the picture here, lay the buttons out, make them purple. And there is a wonderful YouTube video that you can still find. It predates YouTube. It's like 30 years old. Called Make My Logo Bigger Cream. Because some client would give me a design package they'd spent, 6 or 7 figures on, and then whisper quietly, but could you make my logo a little bigger? Well, you're the one who paid the graphic design and the art firm and the advertising agency. You want your logo bigger. I should probably just do what they said, and the client would say, no, make my logo bigger. I bring this strange story up because I think that directors have a strange substance they rub on screenplays called Make the Screenplay Longer Cream. The screenplay is only about 40 minutes long. Rub this ointment into it and it will suddenly become about 90 minutes. That's, I'm pretty sure, what happened to this movie. Somebody rubbed Make My Screenplay Longer cream all over this screenplay, particularly into the first 2/3 of it. Our protagonist, and they're all white and British, and I can't tell them apart, he kept like, I'll get into a fist fight with this person, I'll get into a fist fight with that person, I'll keep stupidly trying to go beyond this barrier instead of doing something clever, with a telescope or a periscope or a microscope or, I don't know, something else that has scope in the name. It just seemed repetitive and frustrating and slow. Eventually, it became more interesting and the tempo rose up a little bit, and I began to think that, hey, at least it has an unusually thoughtful ending. Not many people travel through space and time trying to seek just an honorable death. That was actually a very unusual premise, right up there with To Serve Mankind. So I really think that there was a good 40 or 50 minutes to be gotten out of the screenplay, but somebody rubbed Make My Screenplay Longer cream all over it, and mindless padding just appeared in all kinds of scenes, because, an ointment isn't a very smart thing. So I think there was the potential to be a wonderful Twilight Zone episode. Yeah, I know, I've said that before. But sadly, it was 90 minutes long and not 45 or 50. I'm not even sure if they could have gotten 60 minutes out of it. I don't think this was really a feature. But it could have been a great short. NT5TM.
I had to swallow my popcorn because I figured you were going to talk and just lacerate the actual plot itself, but you didn't. But you just said there were lots of fistfights. Okay, well, that's all right. So, let's see. Let me go to Bill, N5BB. Bill, tell us about the movie you saw from KE5ICX.
Oh, I saw the right movie. This is N5BB. I just remembered the name that you put on the email. But I now realize that when I clicked the link, it went to They Came From Beyond Space. So I did see that movie. So, by the way, the history of this movie is, the story, is there was a story that was published in Startling Stories magazine. It was a magazine release in November of 1941 by Joseph J. Miller. And the name of it was The Gods Hate Kansas. That's right. The Gods Hate Kansas. Why was it called The Gods Hate Kansas? Because evidently there's a lot of meteors that were found in Kansas.
And so the joke was the Gabe, Kansas, because they sent a lot of meteorites there. Well, it turns out that there was a famous big meteorite that was recovered, that was found in 1882 near the town of Brenham in Kansas. And since then, they found out many other pieces, tons of meteorites. So evidently what happened is this big meteorite exploded and fell apart in a bunch of pieces. And so that's why they found so many of these big meteorites in Kansas. It was one big thing that fell apart, and they found a lot of them. Anyway, so that's where the story came from. 1941. Well, this was just a story in a magazine. He then wrote a novel based on that story that was published in 1964, which I think had more modern stuff in it. And then the British made this movie in 1967, setting it in England. Confusing. Let's see, this is in 5BB. So, plot. Well, let's see. There were a lot of weird things about the plot. I thought it was, some parts of the plot, I think, were interesting. I thought it was actually interesting that the rocket was underwater, and he sees it coming up out of the lake or whatever. I thought that was actually kind of interesting for something written in 1941 originally. And then, you go down into their labyrinth, and you see like you say, the elevator that lets you get down to the bottom of the rocket. Well, I thought that was kind of interesting too. So some parts of the story in the movie were kind of interesting. And, we've seen other things where those little details wouldn't make it in there, but I thought those were a bit interesting, and they were kind of believable. There were some other things that were kind of Keystone Cops stupid. Did you notice that at the checkpoint where our good friend Templeton, Curtis Templeton, kept trying to go in his old jalopy of a car? Did you notice that the guards were only there? He kept on trying to go in there. Don't you think they would have posted some guards further up the road to stop him before he got there? Oh, no. They didn't do that. So there were some of those stupid things. Also, there were several places where either the good guys or the bad guys were working one-on-one. And they should have always had two people with them at all times to, check and make sure somebody's not sneaking up on you and something. So there's a lot of stupid things like that. What else about it? I thought it was interesting that his buddy that he went to see did a bunch of scientific tests. So they actually did have a laboratory in this guy's house or wherever it was, and they did a bunch of scientific tests. So that kind of looked interesting. And I thought it was interesting that the ray gun were concentrated cosmic rays. Well, for a 1941 story, that was kind of interesting. And the fact that the silver plate in his head blocked ultraviolet. So to tell you the truth, there were some interesting things in it that were totally stupid. But then they added some things like hyperdrive to go to the moon, and a few other stupid things, the planet Zan. I don't know. So, I don't know. In general, I thought it was not the stupidest thing we've seen, but it was more interesting than a lot of the other stupid things. So I thought it was interesting. Not good, but interesting. That's all for now, Inside BB.
Well, thank you, Bill. This is more but interesting. I like that a lot. Okay. All right. I'll save my comments for my turn. Bob, AI5QE. Bob, you did not see the appropriate movie, I guess. What did you watch from KE5ICX?
Well, this is AF5QE, Bob. I did watch it. I just watched the wrong movie first. So I watched It Came from Outer Space, which was, by the way, pretty good. And felt like Phil Hartman from Saturday Night Live was being channeled with Johnny. And then after I realized, because I heard in one of your the nets prior to this that I watched the wrong movie, I did a super fast speed watch with every scene I thought that was probably not important. I would fast scroll through it. And this one seemed like Casino Royale. And it's an unbelievably stuffy British science fiction movie. And let me break. So what I'd say is I think It Came from Outer Space was better than It Came from Beyond Space. But it was kind of fun to see the British in their dinner jackets and their ties, and they felt like a combination of Casino Royale and Flash Gordon, and so the plot. I think it would be unfair for me to really comment on the plot because I watched the movie in about 25 minutes. But anyway, let's say AF5QE, and I enjoyed it.
All right, well, thank you, Bob. Believe me, as Tony pointed out, you probably skipped through some of the repetitious stuff. It just kept going with the fist fights every few minutes. So it doesn't matter. You probably landed on what you thought were the most important parts, but or maybe not, and you're not going to comment on the plot. There's actually one thing that happens through the whole thing: fist fights. That's about it. So if you saw a fist fight, you saw the movie. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Yeah, It Came from Outer Space, I think is the, I don't know which one that actually, oh, you mentioned it with Phil Hartman. I haven't seen that one. Okay, so next up is Virginia, NV5F, Virginia. I know you saw this film. You said you saw this film. You admitted to seeing this film. Your comments on the plot from KE5ICX.
Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs way up for being stupid but interesting. I did think it was stupid. It had potential. When it started, it had that slow, kind of leisurely feel that British things can have, and that didn't bother me. I thought it was, had some promise at first. Then it was, I did notice that they threw something in there that they never really paid off, and I got it wrong. There was a scene where Templeton goes by this gas station and meets this pretty girl, and she flirts with him, and that's after his girlfriend has already been possessed by aliens, and so this other lady comes along, and I really thought that they were going to have some kind of a partnership and like save the world, because she seemed pretty lucky, and they made her sort of interesting, and then later she disappeared because of the alien sort of conspiracy to take everybody and then replace her with some dudes who were after Templeton because he was on to them, and they said, well, she had never worked at that gas station, and so he knew something was really wrong. Oh, and the whole, they had to make a big deal out of the big silver plate in his head, and we knew that was going to pay off later, and it did that, and then the ridiculous tinfoil hat person silver helmet that they made that he and his scientist friend made and then later they made some kind of cool looking helmet so that you could, not have to be taken over by aliens because your brain was, guarded by your silver shielding helmet. I thought that was pretty funny. I laughed pretty hard. It was like it started out as trying to be a serious science fiction movie. So my original plot synopsis was, hey, you guys, Stanley Kubrick is over there at Borehamwood right now. He's making a movie called Journey Beyond the Stars. We've spied on him. We know his movie's about, it's supposed to have like a really high intellectual plot about meeting aliens. Let's get something out quick and dirty. And so they started making this movie and got it out well before his movie, which, eventually changed titles. And then they were like, oh man, 2001, that's a way better title. But at least we have Beyond in the title of our movie. That was kind of my thought on the intent in this when I first started watching it. It might have been, but the plot just kind of went to pieces. By the end, it was just padding, like Tony said, padding the screenplay to get more time out of the story. Kubrick did that with long, beautiful, artistic shots. He was way smarter at doing it. He had a razor-thin plot that was actually very well executed by his artistry. This came out at the end with the reveal of going to the moon in the giant rocket ship with the spiral staircase, which I always love when they put weird things in rockets. But the big reveal was some, aliens in robes that were, people whose bodies they had taken over, and then at the end it just felt like a Star Trek plot. I think there was even a remark like, oh, it's a Star Trek ending, and Templeton even did have a little bit of a Captain Kirk vibe to him, which, hey, Star Trek was out at this point too, so maybe they were trying to copy Star Trek. And of course he got his girlfriend back, and the lady that we met at the gas station, she ended up in, kind of in the freezer in the spaceship, she was in the labyrinth of convoluted, their HQ that they built underground with, we don't know how or how they did it so quickly and where they got all their stuff. But that elevator, that was great. I love that elevator. But yeah, the ending of it was just kind of, okay, we filled up enough time, let's end this. And it was all like, well, why didn't you guys just ask us for help getting back to your planet so that I guess they were going home to die with dignity, and they somehow thought they needed people's bodies to do that, and so unpossess these people, and that'll be our sign that you are showing us goodwill, and we know you will let us help you without taking over people. The end. So yeah, the ending was kind of unsatisfying because it was just it was an old school like Busby Berkeley. The end. Oh, everything's solved all in like 30 seconds. The end. We have no more musical numbers / fist fights. We just got to end this movie. So yeah, it had like a Star Trek episode feel to the ending. The beginning was promising. It did have a little bit of the British spy genre kind of. I thought Johnny English was going to drive up or something. It had a little bit of that to it, so yeah, kind of interesting mix of cultures, genres. The British movie style kind of used for a hopefully blockbuster sci-fi movie with aliens, with Beyond in the title. Yeah, that's it for me. NV5.
All right, thank you, Virginia. Yeah, I was going to say that about all you had to do was ask, which is a Star Trek ending if there ever was one. It's like, really? All the fist fights and machine gun fire? Never mind. At any rate, okay. Next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, your thoughts on the plot for tonight's movie? They came from beyond space from 1967.
Okay, I may not have a lot of dealing with COVID and a fever right now, but I wanted to check in, and I watched it twice. I was so impatient for you to send out the link that I found the Elvira version on YouTube, and so I got to hear her commentary, and that was kind of a revisit to the 80s. You know, yeah, we've kind of seen this plot before. I tend to give these movies a free pass for some reason because of, I don't know, probably just the nostalgia of seeing movies to drive in and things like that. But, you know, we kind of, it kind of reminded me at the beginning of War of the Worlds with the meteors all landing, you know, and they're landing in the shape of a V, and, or, you know, the formation. And then they, you know, go up to the meteor and touch it, so it kind of gave me the War of the Worlds vibe. And, you know, interestingly, it was a double bill, or they had it with two movies. And it was I don't know if it's called Astronaut, or there was another movie that was made with this one, and they were both released together. And on Wikipedia, they said it was the two worst movies that this company was known for. But I kind of liked the movie. It's, you know, just because it was silly, and yeah, you had the fist fights, and you know, so I suppose, you know, we've seen fist fights in Batman and everything, and you know, that was very predictable, and so was this one. But yeah, it was just kind of interesting though with the aliens being all energy. I'm not sure why they needed a spaceship, or, you know, but they had to obviously take over human bodies to build something physically. So that was kind of an interesting thing because they, you know, there was limitation to them being all energy. They needed to take on physical form. And so that kind of reminded me of elements of the body snatcher, you know, where they were taking over the body. Interestingly, too, there was a mispronunciation where they were calling it the Crimson Plague, and I think the one doctor called it was something, the red flag or something, but it was a mispronunciation that somehow made it into the film. So that was kind of interesting to me. But yeah, it had kind of some elements of different science fiction movies that we've seen combined into this movie, I thought, anyway. And if I didn't make any sense, I'm running a fever, so maybe that's fine. But I did kind of like this movie in that I always give these a free pass because they're back in the era of really bad science fiction movies that I love. Back to you, Tom, W5BLT.
All right, thank you, Bill. Let's see. I'll name some. I'll think of some titles and see. You'll have to think about whether you'll give them a free pass or not because they were so bad, but from that era. But let me work on that one a little bit. Okay, Brenda did type some stuff in the chat window for me, so let me find that and I'll read to you what she says. Please stand by. All right, this is what she says. She says, Wiki says that the producers spent all their money making the Terrornauts, so there was no money left over for this movie. Maybe we should have watched that, she says. This movie was so 60s, groovy music and all. Whoever ever had a silver plate in their head? Then she says, lots of plot holes, predictable. And then she says, except for the girl, I had some trouble telling the characters apart. And then she says over, meaning she's done typing out these responses. So yeah, that makes sense. I fully get that. Okay, let's see. Let me go ahead and well, John said he had no traffic, so I'm going to skip over John for now. But John, if you're still out there on the next round, I'm going to ask you, is this a movie you would want to watch? So I'll go ahead and ask, is there anyone else out there that would like to check in? Please come with your call now.
Kilo Charlie Prime, Sierra Whiskey Sierra, not possessed by aliens.
Oh my God, KC5SWS, probably coming back from his new job. Did you see our fine film this evening?
I wish I could have. Like, I was at the new venue, and so I'm enjoying it. I miss you guys to death, though. I love chatting with y'all in person.
Well, Andrew, we miss you at the museum, and I miss you on the radio here, but in any case, I'm glad you checked in to show that you're around and on a roundabout. I don't know.
Always good hearing from you guys. I'm not possessed by aliens, so, but I wish I could have seen the movie. But we'll say 73 is KC5SWS.
Okie dokie. All right, well, let me give my comments about this film and the plot. Okay, here are some things, and I mentioned them ranting with capital letters and exclamation points while we're watching this movie. A few of us yesterday and chatting about it while we watched it together separately. So, first off, our protagonist goes and gives the apparently endless money to build what essentially is an alien version of Cape Kennedy. Now, what kind of budget does internal affairs have, or the scientists have, or any of that, to go ahead and build a multi-stage large rocket, put it on a launch pad that's underwater, come up with the caves to place underwater, and hire the 500 people who don't actually build anything but wear hard hats and have machine guns and can't shoot worth a darn at anything. They didn't hit a darn thing. So all this money got spent on this, and how long did it take? Was this a few days, a month, a year, 10 years? How long did it take NASA to get ready to go to the moon? Really? We had to do it in less than 10 years, but that was with a huge budget. And I don't think the GNP, the gross national product for Great Britain could have afforded this rocket system. And let's not forget, it's a hyperdrive rocket. Where do you go and get hyperdrive parts for this thing so that you can launch it to the moon in a couple hours? That's great. But we did have this really cool elevator. Everybody loves the elevator, but the elevator was a choke point. Think about it. Only 5 guys in hard hats and machine guns could go down at any given time. And they're the only ones that use the elevator when you really get down to it, except for our stars. They'd come down, the door would open, they'd start shooting in all directions. That must have happened 50 times. So there's that. Then they built, and then they had the launch pad at the base of the swamp or something. I don't know. What do you do with the heavy equipment? Do you rent a launch pad facility? I don't know. And what do you put ads out? Do you take your ray gun and go and use it on everybody you can find because you need a lot of people? Or do you just take out ads in the local newspaper? Or do you pick up people at the local pub and say, you get a hard hat and a machine gun if you join us? So these things were concerning me, and I was just trying to figure it out. And suspiciously, there was same. It looked like the same 5 workers, even though they would, yeah, they were spread out everywhere. Oh, and another thing too, and they mentioned this. Get the 10,000-volt fence. Who pays that electric bill? Where do they hook it up? And is that the only place you can get through? I don't know. They were swear that they were going to, run down the thing, and the big green car. I don't know, what was that thing? Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang mobile. You just go in and okay, come on in. So I don't know. All very odd to me. I wasn't sure what this all meant in the scheme of things, except that whoever takes care of expenses for this government agency with Mr. Meteorite Guy that allows billions of pounds probably to be spent on this big, huge facility. And he just kept signing the checks, and then he decides one day, well, I better go over there and see what they're doing. Starting with, 3 martini lunches, I'm sure they all had. That was probably the thing that did it. No alcohol. That's what triggered him the investigation, not the 40 billion pounds to build the secret rocket base. What do you call that? Chewing gum? I don't know. Oh, and another thing, since it sort of does the James Bond thing, and I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again for people who haven't heard, and I'm ranting and shaking my fist in the air there. You can see it on the video screen. Shaking my fist in the air. Where does all the heavy equipment come from to build this facility? I mean, road graders, you got to upgrade the road, but no. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's running on basically a dirt road. Well, what are you going to do with the steam thing that's going to have to build the giant tunnels? How about that big rocket thing from at the Earth's core? They could have brought that thing in. It was from the same people, the Amicus people. And, would anybody notice driving that through town? Oh, look, by George, at the Earth's core machine is coming through town. I'll bet you they're going to bore a hole just outside of the hamlet. Yes, of course they did. Okay, enough ranting. Let me move on to the character development, or lack thereof. We will start with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, character development. Tell us about it from KE5ICX.
Oh, Tom, thank you so much, because yes, I was obsessed with how the screenplay seemed to drag on. And I forgot all those practical things, like that sure looks like a multi-stage moon rocket, but somehow it flies back and forth in a few hours, then keeps landing again in the lake. Yeah, all that practical stuff. Whoopsie. The characters were unfortunately not that much better. I had a hard time telling a Sorry about that, fingers slipped off the switch. I had a hard time telling apart all the white dudes in suits. Oh my gosh, so many white dudes in suits with short haircuts. They couldn't give anybody an interesting quirk, a funny accent, an eye patch. I guess you're the male protagonist. I guess you're his love interest. I think I can mostly tell. I was really disappointed with how hard it was to tell people apart. And, oh shoot, I don't know who said this earlier in the last round. Maybe it was Virginia. The punk rock girl at the gas station, they really set her up to be like a co-conspirator, an ally. And then we just see her in a freezer. What? She died of the plague. Well, why are we watching this movie? She was going to be the heroine, versus the boring, stereotypical one, like to marry her love interest. So yeah, the careful bunch of short-haired, suited, necktie-wearing white dudes. I can't believe that people were willing to go to space without a tie. But in real life, that happened. I don't think there was a single pie worn in space in any of our American space programs. And I don't think the Soviets did it any differently. But yet, somehow, in this movie, everyone had to wear a boring necktie. Yeah, I found, until we got to the weird, ugly robes, I found it very hard to tell people apart, and it didn't get much better after that. So I would like to give the characters a D at best. D for dreadful. MP5TS.
D for dreadful. I love it. Okay, Tony. Very good. Let's see. Bill, N5BB. Bill, your thoughts on characterization, our doctors and hard hat guys and our aliens. Tell us more from KE5ICX.
Okay, Tom, this is N5BB. Well, I could tell some of the characters apart from each other. Not all, but most of the main ones. But there weren't that many, and they weren't characterized very deeply. So, of course, and a lot of them we learned very little about the backstory. So, in other words, we learned early on that that Kurt Templeton, the hero, and his girlfriend Lee, whatever her name was, Lee Mason. Kurt Temple, that's his name, Kurt Temple and Lee Mason. We learned that they're sweethearts, which wasn't clear in the first scene, but then it becomes immediately clear later there. But we learned very little about the relationship before she goes over to the evil side and gets, her brain infected. This is yet, talking about characterization, this is yet another one of these movies where the evil aliens infect our brains. It's either the zombies coming in and doing it, or it's evil aliens. Occasionally it's a hypnotist, but usually it's something like evil aliens coming in and taking control of your brain.
Yep.
And that was a popular theme back there. It may have been because of the Red Menace. Oh, the communists. Ooh, 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 ooh. They're going to take control of the brains of our youngsters and everybody else. So that was nearly a talk about characterization, the aliens taking control of the brains. Which kind of messed up the characterization because you had the characterization before they got taken over and after they got taken over. So you had a couple of scientists that went over to the evil side because their brains got taken over, including Lee, the woman. Then, let's see. So, but we don't hear very much about the people. I mean, we don't. The only thing we learn about the main protagonist is that he's pretty dogged. He keeps on trying. He never gives up. He keeps on coming back and back and back. And I guess the reason for that was supposedly because of his girlfriend. I mean, at the end, he, takes her away and puts her in his car and drives her away and finds a way to recover her from the evil alien influence. What else about characterization? I thought that the aliens from the planet Zan, of all things, in the funny robes on the moon, so I guess they had a pressurized moon base or something that wasn't made very clear. What were they in on the moon? Was it a huge spacecraft? Was it some big base? What was it on the moon? tell us anything about that. It was just on the moon. But they were pretty stupid. And that whole scene near the end with the where the alien finally leaves his body, why did he do that? Surely after nearly, performing surgery on Kurt to get out the metal plate. He goes from that to a few minutes later, he gives up and leaves his body. That doesn't make any sense at all. So that whole part was just goofy. Let's see, what else? Characterization. I guess that's it. There's more to talk about later in 5BB. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. You have way more to say about this film than I think it deserved as far as the characterization, but that's okay. Let's see, Bob, AI5QE. Bob, your thoughts on characterization for our fine film, They Came From Beyond Space, from KE5ICX.
Okay, well, this will be my last comment, is I've got an early morning, but let me just say that I think Dr. Temple and this silver plate was the inspiration for one of the great movies of all time, which was Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation. As we all remember, the metal plate in his head, every time his wife would ramp up the microwave, would cause one problem, and then another problem was he would forget who he was for half an hour. So I just reflected on that metal plate and how it probably inspired that scene. In terms of the movie, the characters, I never really connected with any of them. I felt like kind of backing up a little bit. Iron Man Flint, Trog, that whole British, we all wear a tie and talk real serious sci-fi was kind of the star of the movie. And at the end, all of a sudden you had people wearing Flash Gordon uniforms. But, and as you mentioned, fights. And Iron Man Flint, by the way, had some of the greatest machine gun battles of all time where nobody got hit. But anyway, that's it for me, and I'm going to go to bed here in a second. But thank you very much for hosting. This is AI5QE.
All right, well, very good. Thank you, Bob, for staying up late and providing your comments this evening. Yeah, I know the feeling. I actually, technically, it's optional, but people remind me when I don't show early Sunday. We'll see. Okay, next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, your thoughts on characterization for our fine film this evening that bears no name. We don't need to repeat the name because we know what it already is. And I don't know why I said that. Maybe I'm fighting sleep. Who knows? Virginia, what did you think about characterization from KE5ICX?
I'll say it. They came from beyond space. Wow. Well, I can't believe it's my turn again already. The characters were pretty stereotypical. You kind of knew at the beginning the girl, she was the only girl, and she was very pretty. And she was immediately taken over by aliens because she just thought, well, there was lots of radiation, but there's not much now, so I'm just going to touch this meteorite. And, of course, they took over her body. And you kind of knew from the start that the guy with the plate in his head was, he was the rebel. He's also American. They had to make him American, make him kind of stand out. And he drove that trippy car. He was he's kind of like a hipster hero. He drove that car from like the 20s, and it was the 60s, and everybody else was driving, trendy cars that would have matched the music, the spy movie music they were playing sometimes, the groovy music. And he was driving the old school car. He had his own styles. They were trying to make him kind of stand out that way. American guy driving a weird car with a plate in his head. So, you know, he was the most interesting person in the movie, and he did stand out. I could tell him apart from all the other characters, even if it was just because of his Captain Kirk hair or his American accent. And the lady that they kind of set up, the red herring lady that they kind of set up, I thought to be like, you know, I kind of thought, oh, well, that woman you love, she's just kind of, this is kind of a superficial thing, and she's just kind of full of herself, and and now she's been taken over by aliens, so he's going to fall in love with this other lady while they save the world, and that didn't go anywhere. And, you know, I don't know, I think that's just bad writing, but anyway, so yeah, I'm with y'all. A lot of the characters didn't really stand out from one another. And then who cares, because they were all taken over by aliens, so then suddenly they were all evil. There was the kind of one quirky scientist guy who built the weird silver colander helmet, which I thought was, I laughed out loud when I saw that. But yeah, and then the people taken over by aliens that were up on the moon wearing robes, that was so Star Trek. They were just, you know, they did a fine job acting as everybody in this. The actors, I think, were all pretty good actors. They were all playing very stereotypical characters. There was nothing really, like someone said earlier, there was nothing really that made the characters interesting enough for you to really like go, oh, really, I really like this guy. I think the most interesting person in the movie was the little blonde-haired chick at the gas station with her jeans and her, you know, her turtlenecks and plaid shirts and kind of, she had that bob haircut and very 60s makeup, but she was very pretty and like I said, plucky, and she seemed sort of quirky, like a little tomboy, but very pretty and coiffed, you know, so that she could be a movie heroine. And I think she was probably the most interesting person in the movie. NV5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia, and I'll agree with you. She was probably the most interesting character in the movie. Unrealized, so big mystery. We'll never know enough about her to really know. But you're right. Okay, next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, characterization. You make the call.
Hey, thanks, Tom. I think this will be my last round, at least speaking-wise. Yeah, I like the girl at the gas station, at the filling station. I was disappointed they didn't do, maybe enough with her, writing that in the script. Of course, I like the doctor, the lady that said. And when I was going to do something really, I wanted to do something really in-depth on this, but didn't get time because I wanted to track down all these people on the Wikipedia article. There's like 24 people mentioned, or characters in the cast. And when I was watching it, granted I'm sick, and I watched it twice, I didn't realize there were that many people in this thing, but, maybe some of them the guards. Anyway, so it seemed like a bunch of people. Yeah, it was, obviously you can tell, I can tell two women by their voices, and the doctor played it. But yeah, everybody else kind of sounds the same, so it's interesting, being blind, it's interesting that you guys have pointed out that a lot of them look the same too, so I guess I didn't miss much there. I always enjoy filling in the scenery gaps and stuff, because I didn't I didn't get any clue about that elevator, so that's interesting. So, anyway, I appreciate that. As always, everybody filling in the scenery. And, but yeah, the characters, they were kind of hard voice-wise to pick out too, except for the That's all I got, W5BLT.
All right, thank you, Bill. And you're starting to drop like flies. Brenda is still typing frantically, so I'm going to give her a break. And I'm going to go over to John, K5JDW. John, are you still out there? If you are, and of course you'll respond back, is this a movie you want to see from KE5ICX?
Good question, Tom. Thanks for the call back. Good timing, too. I'm burying a power cable to my shed right now, and this is the only time of day you can work. I have not seen the movie. I might see it. I heard just enough of a interest in it. People, it was entertaining enough. I may just go check it out. I also noticed a couple of people said there weren't many actors in it. I guess if it's an English film, that's probably why. It's an island. There's only so many actors, that kind of thing. Every time you see an English show or English movie, it's always got the same people in it. But no, sir. That's all I got to say. Thanks for calling, and 73 K5 JDW.
All right, John. Well, what you need is the workers to help you bury your cable. That would be the ones with the hard hats, the construction hard hats, and the machine guns. And the non-existent heavy equipment you need to dig deep, at any rate. Okay. Brenda did all sorts of typing, and I think she's doing more typing. But she says so far, characters, they were too British and so kind of boring, she says, and she's still typing something else. But our main character was a real hero. Dunn, she says. I don't think his name was Dunn, but yeah, Dunn, D-O-N-E, she says. All right, before I make any comments, let me go ahead and ask if there's anyone else who would like to check in. Please come with your call now. Okay, characterizations. Well, I've got not much to add. Our main character was our main character, and our Captain Kirk type character as I think Virginia mentioned. Yeah, well, he's fine and boring and all of that. I didn't see anything there. I thought at the end where we had the very British Quadludians or whatever they were, the ones that were on the moon, they were, I don't know, they were kind of odd. Were they tricking us at first in saying that, oh, poor us, we can't do anything, and then the next thing you know, they're taking our hero and going to remove his metal plate, get something done, and don't even seem to mind at all. I have no conscience. And then all of a sudden, all you had to do was ask, and then everybody's released, and the end. What are these aliens? They've got a plan in place. Why waste their time with getting help from the humans? And what are the humans going to do? There's nothing they can do. They've already built the rocket ship. Are they going to use it? And they already blew the expense account for this weird organization that Dr. Dumbo works for. So there's not much the humans can do, but they're going to stop everything, release the guy, and let him shake hands and say, "I'm the dumb doctor that helped to make this happen." So I don't know, just odd to me, I guess. Very strange, but that's kind of how the movie went. All right, let's see. Let's do this. Since people are dropping like flies, I'm going to go ahead and open it up. If you have a comment that you would like to bring either on the special facts or something we missed, please come with your call, and I will put you down, and we'll do it in the order that I get you. That way, then we can end a little early. Well, we may end at any rate. That's what I'm going to do because I'm beginning to fade myself. If you've got a comment that you'd like to bring before we close the net, please come with your call now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Kilo 5.
Victor 5, Foxtrot.
Kilo 5. Juliet, Delta Whiskey.
Tony may have covered me up in 5BB.
Okay, well, there's still some life out there. So here's who I got in no particular order because everybody kind of got stomped on. I got NT5TM, NV5F, K5JDW, N5BB. Anyone else? Okie dokie, I'll do it in that order. Tony, NT5TM, go ahead.
So I want to insult this movie in two ways that I haven't insulted it before. First off, I'm just not a jazz person. I did not, I mean, they clearly had a professional, somebody, I don't know what they call that, I guess a composer, band leader, annoyance. Somebody clearly got paid to create original music for this movie. And they did a very professional job of creating music that I absolutely hated. Man, I hated the soundtrack, score, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, too much jazz. Not my thing. Also, special effects. Man, I guess it was the 60s. Oh, look, a purple light kills you or represents an alien. A green light, I don't know, represents teleportation or something. All the special effects just seem to consist of colored light. I didn't like that at all. I guess I'll be quiet now. NT5TM, I don't like jazz or colored light special effects.
All right, thank you, Tony. Well, here's the thing. Composers used to do a lot of that, especially in the early 60s and 50s, and this went to 67. But composers that have written jazz scores, John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith, John Barry, and I'm sure there's plenty of others that are better known for their orchestral scores, have written jazz scores for movies. So keep that in mind. And what was the color? You were talking about lights and color. Don't forget, this is an Eastman color film, limited out of England. So have to be colorful, but we don't have a lot of money, so we'll just use color lights. Okay, next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the jazzy music, the groovy jazzy music was there, especially toward the end of the 60s. Yes, I'm with Tony on the other one that they would do for a special effect when the aliens were taking over or being ousted from the girls, was that spirally, swirly, trippy swirl they would sort of superimpose on the image. That was kind of a cheat in this movie, that either the special effects looked like super cheesy models, or the visual effects, something looking, cueing us that something alien was happening, was just a different colored light shining or being double exposed onto the picture. I'm going to leave that whole blue screen issue to Tom to talk about, because I don't want to, say everything. But in case Bill BLT is listening, I will describe the awesome elevator. It looked like this big tall cylindrical thing, and it had alternating black and yellow stripes on it. Almost like, like sort of construction zone or danger stripes. and then the door was just the whole thing rotating, and when it rotated, the door would open, and it was big and thick and just, you know, very, very solid and awesome, cool looking, and it made a cool sound, and which I'm sure you heard the sound, but yeah, I'm trying to describe the elevator. It seems to defy description. It's so cool, but yeah, the cylindrical stripy elevator sounds great. So that's it for me. NV5F.
I think the elevator was the best part of the movie. That's what seems to be the consensus. Okay, K5JDW. John, you had a comment. Go ahead.
Thanks, Tom. I was just going to make a wisecrack. I didn't think you'd get all those responses back. I was just going to say I'll have to go find the special tie first if I'm going to do any of that kind of work. But glad I stuck around. I was really, it really hurt me a little bit to think that Tony might not like the Peanuts music. K5JDW.
Well, John, anytime you have a late night project, come on by and we'll keep you entertained. Better than usually the movie we watched. Okay, Bill, N5BB. Bill, what do you got?
Okay, this is N5BB. Well, sort of a comment. First on the music. I thought it was okay. I thought the music at the start was a little kind of a trippy thing, kind of a different, kind of drew me in. So I kind of liked the start of music, and then some of it kind of came back later. So music did not turn me off, okay? I thought it added a little bit of continuity and interest to it. I did think that some parts of the movie early on were too dark. Like some of these old other shows that have been moved over to digital mode, the medium, it's like when the scenes get to be kind of low light, it goes to black. So I had a hard time seeing what was going on sometimes early in the movie because it was just too dark to see. Turning the intensity of my iPad all the way up, and I still could barely see what was going on. I did think, like some of the people commented, that the gas station girl was great. She was great. She was interesting. I mean, as a character, she was interesting. Her acting was interesting. If you'll notice, at several little places, she was in the back. She was looking. She was in the background. She was hanging around. And so I was waiting to see, was she going to be one of the bad guys or the good guys? I couldn't tell. At one point, I thought she was one of the government agents trying to figure out what was going on. At another point, I thought she was one of the aliens infected by aliens, trying to make sure that the protagonist wasn't going to do something bad. At other times, I thought she was just a friend that was sitting there just trying to see what was going on in town. So my guess is, as they filmed it, they weren't sure what they were going to do. So my guess is they may have filmed it with several alternative plots for her. And they cut all that stuff out, and all they showed us at the end was her sitting there in the body bag, in the freezer or whatever. But to me, the movie would have been a lot more interesting if they cut out a lot of the fist fights and stuck her in there doing something interesting. Because I thought she would have been a good addition. The elevator. The elevator was great, and one thing you left off. The elevator had an indicator to show how it was moving. And they showed, every time it moved, they showed this. On the outside of the elevator, on the bottom level, there was a little vertical glass tube. And there was a red ball in it, kind of like floating on a fluid or something. And when the elevator went up or down, this red ball went up or down. I thought that was cool. Very basic and simple, but it just made the whole thing much more interesting to me. Now, the car. Yeah, the old car, which actually, one of the actors in the movie said to him, "What are you doing coming around to that old jalopy?" They actually called it a jalopy. They used that term. And so I thought this is kind of interesting. When I first saw the thing, I thought, is this going to be like The Prisoner? Is this going to be like Patrick McGugan and his Lotus 7? Number 6 is Lotus 7, KAR 120C? No, it was just an old car. But you notice that car was his real friend. When his girlfriend, he had to get her somewhere and wanted to kind of keep her out of things, he had this neat snap-on, even though the car looked old, he had what looked like a brand new snap-on cover that he stuck her down below it and kind of held her in with that snap-on cover, which was kind of cool. And I thought one of the neatest scenes was he pulls up in front of the guards. By the way, after the first time, the guards should have either shot him, incapacitated him, or even better, they should have arrested him and put him in the pokey. Why didn't they do that? He was a pain. Why didn't they do that? Who knows? They kept on just watching him come up and saying, "No, you're a pain. Get out of here." But anyway, I thought one of the neatest scenes was when he pulls his old jalopy up to the checkpoint, and they say, the fence is still electrified. And they say, no, we're going to not let you in. And then he goes back to the car, he reaches in, you watch him move it. He increases it. It's a hand accelerator thing. He pushes it up. It's like on a tractor. You've ever driven an old tractor. It's got a little hand knob you turn for the engine speed. He revs the thing up, and he goes over and kind of removing the parking brake, and he says, "Once I let this baby go, it's going to go right through there, and it's made, some of you guys may get electrified." And that convinced him to go and get his girlfriend and bring her up there. And then she was able to say, "Get lost," because she was infected with the alien spirit. I thought that was a neat thing. So I think the car, just like in The Prisoner, I thought the car was a character in the movie. And it appeared in many more scenes than nearly any other character in the whole movie. So the car, the elevator, and the girl in the gas station. Good things about the movie. A lot of the rest of it, stupid. And 5BB.
Oh, Bill, this is so bizarre coming from you. I love it, though. The car, the elevator, and the girl were the 3 best characters in the movie. Superb. I love it. Okay. We missed you. Apparently, you've changed your drugs, so it is quite fascinating. All right. The only thing that Virginia asked us about the blue screen thing. So I'll mention this. That's a special effect thing. I kind of forgot about it, but I ranted about it in the movie last night when we were watching it. And that is that if you remember at the Earth's core, there's some blue screen scenes. The most notable one was at the very beginning where you see our heroes climb a ladder to get into the Earth drill machine. It's very obvious that it's very two-dimensional. There's a screen behind it. I believe it's a blue screen. I don't think it's projection screen because it just has that very flat look. And the picture in the background, the camera foreground and background, that they don't, one shakes, the other does not. It just looks very weird. So blue screen back in the day and green screen today, which is much, much better, but blue screen, it was like the weather caster would be on the screen, and then in the background would be the map and the changing and evolving weather stuff. So that's a blue screen or a green screen, as they're called today. This movie had the blue screen going on with the car, the green car, or the blue car, the greenish blue car. and it bleeds through. You can see it. It was a really quick thing. I don't think it was a reflection. In Star Trek, if you watch the old special effects, which is becoming harder and harder to find, there's several scenes with the Enterprise, particularly in when it goes through the great big pink barrier at the edge of the galaxy. There's some very serious bleed through the Enterprise. So if you remember those scenes and remember that happening, that's the same thing that happened with the car scene in this movie. So it takes you out of what little bit of reality there is. And this seems to be a thing that's common with this Atticus film people. That's the way that they can quickly get a take done, is use this blue screen to solve problems by just putting them in a studio somewhere for their outdoor shots. It's not unheard of, but as I think Virginia mentioned last night too, rear projection is usually what you'll see, and it was used quite exhaustively. But blue screen was another cheap method, probably cheaper than a back projection, to make it work. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close it up. We ended up going an hour and a half anyway, so we're going to hit the top of the hour. Next week's movie is Cosmos: War of the Planets from 1976. When did this thing come out? It says 1966. It could be. All right, I'll say it's 1966. But in any case, War of the Planets or Cosmos: War of the Planets. It depends on how you read it. That'll be the movie. It's available on archive.org. Really easy to find. You can even download it if you would like a wonderful copy of this stupid thing. You can. But that's it. That'll be next week's movie. We'll see y'all then. Okay, I'm going to go watch The Dream Monster, Lost in Space, Fair to Midland episode with the Frankenstein story told by a guy named Sesmar and a guy in a gold diving suit. Yeah, obviously painted gold, borrowed from Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Oh, there's Sesmar. All right, I'm going to go watch that, and then I'm going to go to bed, if I even make it that long. This is A73 to everybody. Thanks. It was a lot of fun this evening. We'll catch you later. Oh, Brenda says I forgot her. The music was obnoxious, repetitious, and overbearing, but the elevator was pretty cool. I don't plan on watching it again. Over. And then she says, you forgot me. No, I didn't. I just read it. So, see y'all. Bye-bye, and bye bonds. This is KE5ICX. Clear for now.